I'm Julie Stewart-Binks, and I'm in the press row.
Welcome to the Press Row. Behind the scenes stories from the world of sports media. Press Row. Insight and interviews from around the sports world. Now here's your host, Jonah Siegel.
Jonah here in the press row. It's been a bit. People are on summer vacation, what have you, but it's good to be back. Today's episode, Julie Stewart-Binks. She's been here before. I think you're going to love today's episode. You come here to hear from people talk about their passion for what they do, and that's what today's episode is full of. She's got an incredible background, hockey broadcasts, soccer broadcasts, and she's just fresh off doing the Olympics as well. Sit back, relax, and enjoy Julie Stewart-Binks in the press row. Welcome back in the press row. We are moments away from Labor Day weekend, which can be both sad and joyous. I wrote a LinkedIn post actually about that, and I'll talk about that in a second. But first, let me be the nice host and welcome my guest. It is so awesome to see your smiling face. We've had you here before, and we love repeat guests, which means we've done something right or not been a jerk. So she is from multiple outlets. I will let you tell us all the awesome places that you're working these days. I know Bet Rivers is one of them. You're doing some soccer, some lacrosse stuff. You're doing some hockey stuff. She is a good friend of the show. I believe in New York City right now. There's been some Boston, some Toronto, some Paris. One of the few people who travels more than I do. She is Julie Stewart-Binks. Julie, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me on. And I guess you could just sort of say every outlet, every city, every country, and you'd be fine with that, because it seems as though the tentacles are all over the place. But yeah, I believe the last time we talked was maybe before the pandemic, because I very vividly remember being in my old apartment, which was, pre-pandemic world.
No, it was pandemic world.
Oh, okay. Well, then,
and
yeah.
you were right in the midst of doing, because we spoke tequila, one of my loves, and you were doing drinks with Binks.
Well, clearly, your memory serves better. Maybe that's because I was doing drinks with Binks that I can't remember the last time was. But it's great. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah. So my post about Labor Day was, for some people, it's like a negative thing as we head into fall. To me, living in Seattle, it's a chance to bring out the flannels. It looks like you got on a hoodie. Like summer's great, but fall does bring in fall sports, fall classics. You got college football, you got football, you got hockey and basketball training camp. I did mention, you get to bring out the flannel shirts, a little bit cozier, the comfort foods, you get soups and stews. There is something to like about Labor Day, no?
There is. I have like a variety of feelings with that, because it's the delineation of, oh, wow, summer is quote unquote over. Like, what happened? What did I do? Did I do anything fun or cool or anything like that? Yes. All those things happen, but then it is nice. It's almost like, even though it's fall and it's not and I'm just gonna, it's not spring when things are sort of birthing, but it's like the birth of all of, as you said, the wonderful sports that we get to watch, and that crisp feeling of a college football Saturday. Everyone seems to really just enjoy that. It's that energy that's everyone sort of come back to the city or come back to where they live, and they're going to start whatever chapter is next. And it does, as we know, like when we were in school, that's when school started, and it feels that way when you're an adult too. So I think it's great. In that sense, it can kind of feel like a new fresh chapter, but then by also the other means you're kind of like, wait a second, like I was really looking forward to that whole summer thing, and then it's now over. Okay, all right. And then if you live on the northeast side of wherever, if you live somewhere cold where it gets cold in the winter, you're sort of like, uh-oh, I know how this ends. So.
And what's coming
a lot of things with it. Yeah. Winter is coming.
So you graced and blessed our televisions, phones with Olympic coverage. And those of you listening, not watching on YouTube, can see Julie's got looks like some Olympic rings around her neck.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you were in Paris post-Olympics. What was it like covering the games virtually?
Well, first, before I continue, I will say that the Paralympics opening ceremony is on right now. I have it on a screen over there. And I love how much they are just going, and I could just do a play-by-play of this, which would then be later on. Pianos, dancing people. It's just, I love that they have what feels different this year. And I think it's a long time coming, is just a real focus on the Paralympics and the Paralympians, because as we've seen in the past, it kind of always feels like this afterthought, and these incredible athletes who do so much more than Olympians. They've had to battle through so much more than them. Are kind of not given the same spotlight. But I would say, going back to your original question, I had an incredible time. I was so fortunate, so grateful to be able to cover the Olympics for the country I grew up in, Canada, and go back to Canada. I've lived in the States for over 11 years now, and to go back, and that was my original love in life. When I was a kid, I grew up wanting to win gold in figure skating. I grew up wanting to win gold in track and field. I just wish someone may have sort of like, none that my parents didn't ever tell me those were unrealistic goals. They're just like, go ahead, like maybe it will happen. It obviously didn't. And but my dad was had been training to compete in 1980 when, of course, the Olympics were boycotted by a number of countries because of Soviets invasion in Afghanistan. My grandpa was a doctor for the Canadian rowing teams in 1976 and 84. So it's like the Olympics has just been just such a part of like my identity in a way. And I mean, not saying that like there's a differentiation between the Olympics and athletes and that whole world. And obviously the IOC and everything that kind of runs it. I think that you have to understand that there are two different things. You can love the Olympics and you can still be critical of them when needed. And I think that by loving them necessarily doesn't always mean you agree with everything that happens with them. And so as someone who was in Tokyo on the ground there covering baseball and softball and seeing an Olympics with no one there, to then also being in Sochi and being in Russia for that, and not being a rights holder, but being with Fox Sports 1 and kind of a very different viewpoint of covering the Olympics, to then being in studio in Toronto and being with the rights holder and covering the Olympics in that way. I've seen it in so many different ways. And even just like to just go back even further, but in 2010, I was doing my master's in London, and I was in Trafalgar Square watching on like a big screen the opening ceremonies of Vancouver 2010. And I was maybe the only person there. And I was all dressed up, ready, so excited. And that was when my mom and I talked on the phone, and we found a very cheap flight to go to Vancouver. And I was able to convince my professors if I could go do kind of like, citizen journalism. I had my little flip camera, not a camera and not a phone, but this flip camera. And I took videos, put them on YouTube, did a whole bunch of like stuff, bought tickets to events, and just sort of did my own style of reporting there. So I've always had, kind of, as long as I can remember, Olympics has been in my life. So it was a true joy and a true, so I just feel so grateful for every aspect of everything I experienced this summer with CBC, from getting to a place that I don't work at, like being kind of the new kid there for the summer, to being able to be live on national TV with a legendary host like Scott Russell on CBC, and feeling like you just know that when you get to that point in your career, you get that opportunity, just how long and how much has gone into those moments. And I think that, I've done a lot of different things in my career, and I don't know if I would have been able to do what I did without all these other different things that I'd done, which made me even more grateful for this moment to come when it did. So there's a very long answer to a very simple question.
So I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, what was more life altering? Donning the Lululemon Canadian outfit or the Havergal green?
Oh, in like in what regard? What do you mean?
What
From
was
this
more
summer?
meaningful? Yeah, generally. I see your TikToks. You were sporting the Canadian Lululemon. You know, which was more meaningful? Was it the historic Havergal green of your childhood, or the Lululemon Canadian wearable? Which was more meaningful?
Okay, and the Havergal one in terms of when I
I,
was
I'm just
there.
I'm just having fun with you. I'm
I
just
don't know.
curious.
I'm just trying to figure. I don't know how to answer. I'm just trying to figure out. No, it would be the Havergal because I actually did it. I didn't compete at the Olympics.
Right.
That's what
Okay.
it's going to be. Like I had so many people ask me about my rings when I just went to Paris and Saint-Tropez, and they're like, "Are you an Olympian? Are you an Olympian?" And I remembered when I got these before Tokyo, and everyone asking me if I was an Olympian, and thinking, "Oh wow, I can't believe people are asking me." And then I realized every Olympian is like wearing them when they compete. And I said no, but I'm a broadcaster, and it's actually a great conversation starter, to be honest. That's why I haven't taken them off yet, because it's a great way to meet people. And so just have something instantly you can talk about. But I am gonna retire it. I'd say probably after the Paralympics, because I want to give and show my respect for these games as well. But yeah, it's kind of one of those feelings where you're like, I am part of it in my own broadcaster way. These are my broadcast Olympic rings, but no, I did not win a medal or compete.
And what was your favorite event to cover?
Oh gosh, I mean, it without a doubt had to be the men's 4x100 meter relay. It was it was just so whew, it was just like this. I get very emotional sometimes when I think about the Olympics, but more so because of how with the Olympics are unique in that they will never happen again. And so I was very fortuitous to be in the studio when Donovan Bailey, who of course Canadians will remember is an icon and a legend, um, who won the 100 meters and the 4x100 meters in 1996 when they were in Georgia, and excuse me, Atlanta, and Saturday nights in Georgia, and watching the 4x100. And I used to be an anchor too for my high school and also in university. So the relay has always given me like that, like kind of this the heebie-jeebies, like just like I get the feelings again. And I talked to Donovan about it, which was really one of the coolest things I could possibly have thought of. It was just like, how did you feel as an anchor when you're watching the race before it gets to you, right? Like it's unlike anything else because you're watching, like you're watching the moment unfold until it gets to you. That doesn't happen normally in any kind of other event. You're usually like in it the entire time. So being able to be in studio with him and knowing that Canada was coming in ranked eighth, like they had the slowest time. None of the guys had made it in their individual finals. And to see them win it out of like absolute thin air, no one expected them to win gold. But it was so neat to watch Donovan know that they were going to win. And it was after the second exchange. So it would be between the second and third runner. After that, the straightaway on the back, the far end into the bend, he just stood up and he was like, we're going to win. And, you're kind of looking with your perspective, trying to figure it out. And you're not really sure until it kind of comes by you, at least for me. And he was right. I mean, it was very close, but seeing that happen and experiencing that moment and having Donovan Bailey there was just like, wow, I cannot even believe I'm watching this right now. And I get the privilege of being here, seeing this moment, his historical moment happen, and having it alongside a legend was really remarkable.
So the Olympics end. You do the wise thing, what everyone should do, and you board a plane, a Delta flight, and you head over to Paris. What was that like?
Well, I decided like I knew I was going to be in Toronto for the game, so I thought, yeah, you're going to be, first of all, the weirdest part about working the Olympics, not going to Paris, was that every single person, when they'd see that I posted that I was working the Olympics or I told them, they'd be like, "Oh, are you going to Paris?" First question. And I say, "No, I'm working from Toronto." And they're like,
Wah,
"Oh."
wah, wah,
And
wah.
it's so odd to have this moment that is like a career moment for you, and you're telling people like, "I'm gonna work the Olympics." Like, "You going to Paris?" You're like, "No." They're like, "No." Just disappointment. So then at some points I was just like, I'm just gonna tell them I'm going. No, I didn't ever tell people I was going. But everyone in the world seemed to go. All my friends who don't work in broadcasting seem to be going to Paris. So I was glad for them. But I thought, I know I'm going to be working with Scott Russell, who's going to be there, and I'm going to see those. I had knew what the shot looked like. I knew I was going to be in the Trocadero. I was seeing the Eiffel Tower in the background, and I just thought, you know, you're going to really, really want to be there and see that in person. And you're going to regret not going. And you know what? You're going to be really, really exhausted after the Olympics. As everyone who's worked one knows, it's just not a sustainable lifestyle, but it is for that amount of time. And you are so sad when it's over because it's just been this marathon you've been sprinting, and it's been such high emotions and such you feel something every day. It's not just a job, it's like it's more than that, and then it ends and you have this emotional hangover. And then actually what helped was going to Paris. Was like, okay, I'm going to board a flight. I couldn't get any more time off from work, which was just asked for a weekend, but I had to go back to covering NWSL, which is what I do on the weekend, which is great because that also had a lot of Olympians in it. So I was able to keep my Olympic obsession going. But I just thought, okay, I'll go. I need to see these rings on the Eiffel Tower, and like seeing them, and it was perfectly timed when on the river Seine boat right when everything was going. And it just, after having covered the games and then going there, it almost felt just so much more magical. It's like, wow, I just saw this all on TV, and now I'm at the Grand Palais where like this is where this happened and all this kind of stuff. And I really am obsessed. Obviously, anyone who's still listening to me just bloviate about the Olympics right now will be like, that girl's got a problem. But it is something that it's great when I love seeing people really into stuff when they're really into it. And I hope people feel something when it's like, oh, that person really likes that, right? I love people that are just really into something, and that's how I feel about the Olympics. And so for better or for worse, sometimes I've been really into them for reasons that I haven't been super happy about them or different things like that, especially the last two Olympics. But yeah, went to Paris. It was just fantastic, and really just kind of came right back. Was able to go to Saint-Tropez and see a friend who I'd met hosting a conference for her earlier this year, which I love about life, is how you can just meet people and say hello and become friends, and then they invite you somewhere and you go and live your life. And that's what I felt this entire summer was just life felt like it came alive. Like everything, every day I soaked it all in, like every single color, like tastes, smell, everything, just being super present as we all try to do, but just really actually doing it and thinking, even the times that were bad or I made a mistake or everything bad is a perceived bad thing, but everything is some way to learn or grow or experience something. So then I use that with the Olympics, use that when I went to Paris and Saint-Tropez, and I don't think I slept all summer, but I lived like my life. And I am ironically doing a sleep study tonight. So they'll probably be like, well, this girl's needed some sleep. That's really why she's here. And then just coming back and going right into work. And I think that, well, there are points of, it's very good to have downtime so you can have proper reflection and really evaluate kind of how things went and who you are and how things are going. But the benefit has been, it's been really, really quite enjoyable to just come home and then go right into NWSL. And it was really, really fun and sort of a full circle to have interviewing Alyssa Naeher, who was a goalkeeper for the U.S. women's national team that won gold in the Chicago Red Stars Louisville game I did last weekend, and I was thinking, wow, life is just all interconnected, every single bit of it, and I'm kind of on cloud nine about life right now, and it's been really good.
Well, it's awesome because you're authentic and it comes across in your work, and it's hard to fake that. Some people can, I guess, but you can absolutely tell when you're into something and you're excited about something. And I'm told that you were very into your NFL draft last night.
Oh God. Yes, yeah, I was very into it, for better or for worse. I was mostly just had existential dread and anxiety over it ahead of time.
So let's hear. So
But
first,
it worked out. It worked out. But one loophole in my fantasy football draft is that it's a keeper league, but it's an auction keeper league. So you are able to keep from, like, you can't keep them 3 years in a row, but up to three players for 2 years, and they go up in price a little bit. It's like you decide, no one is good at math, is what I've noticed by doing an auction keeper league. It is reckless, absolutely reckless, because you have $200 and I spent 47 of it on CeeDee Lamb. So how many other players, and it's a 2 quarterback league, how many other players do you think I have money for after that? And everyone's at the beginning, just, you nominate a player, right? And then everyone's just kind of going for it. And one of the snags, this is for people that would be into fantasy, but was we had 2 people that were on auto draft that weren't there, and the auto draft kept putting the price up. And so you're like, you're trying to get Jalen Hurts or something like that. And you're like, oh, I'm battling auto draft right now. Like, okay, well, this one's
it's like bidding on something on eBay, and someone has it.
Exactly. It's not a real person. We were laughing and we're like, oh, this is the auto draft strategy. And then the auto draft for one guy just didn't do anything forever. And we're like, wow, this one still has $162 while we all had like $14 left. And then, okay, then this auto draft was able to just get every player that was sort of the middle of the pack. Whereas at the end, you only have $1 to spend on each player. And you're just like, I just remember sitting here and I thought, people just saw like how you are at the end of a fantasy football draft, especially one like this, where it just waits until it's your turn and you just put in any player that you need for $1. And then it's like winner and you get it. I'm like, this is living the dream right now. But I did get a couple good ones. So
how long?
Apologies. Someone is vacuuming outside of my apartment right now.
We can't hear it. So how long have you been in this draft? How long have you been in this league?
This is my 3rd year.
Oh, wow. And all the same players are in the league, all the same, not NFL players, all the same people are in this league.
Yes. Yeah. Every year it's the same guys. I filled in for someone one year and then I've just taken their spot since. And, but I did have, just as a quick aside, I did have one cool year where Matthew Berry, fantasy football guru, invited me to be a part of, when he was doing a fantasy football league specifically for Stephen A. Smith. And he needed to fill it out with like celebrities, not of which I am of any sort of that word, but I was a person who was looking for a league. And, and he let me be a part of this league. So I'm competing each week against like Zac Efron and David Spade and John Legend. Like, John Legend sniped so many guys before me in the draft, and I'm like, damn it, John Legend. And it's like, what world am I in where John Legend is sniping guys? He won the league. He was great. But that was a really cool year. And I saw Stephen A. talking about it on ESPN, and he'd be like, yeah, I'm going up against like David Spade this weekend. And I want to be like, no, actually, you're going up against Team JSB. It's not as glamorous, but we're here. So that was pretty cool to do that.
Hang on. There we go. without disclosing, is this a friends league that you're in, or is this another like broadcasters league, or is it just randos that know each other?
Oh, I mean, pretty randos. Like, it's
Okay.
just my ex-boyfriend's friend needed somebody to join, and I did. And so it's actually my ex-boyfriend's friends. And so I had to ask him, hey, is
Nice.
this cool if I do this still? And so, just keeping my tentacles
Uh-huh.
still like
There you
around,
go. There you go.
keep my presence.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I think that's what a lot of leagues are sometimes. It's just
Okay.
like, this sort of kept going for whatever reason.
So what else is keeping you busy these days besides, I am absolutely following you on TikTok, so I see that. And then I saw, I heard about the draft. So what, and you're doing the lacrosse. What else is keeping you
No
active?
lacrosse, no lacrosse.
Oh,
No lax. Although I
gotcha.
have done some stuff for lax
Sorry.
before.
So
No,
what's
that's
keeping you
okay.
busy? So what's keeping you busy these days?
Maybe you are manifesting that I'm supposed to be working in lacrosse right now or something
That's
like
it.
that. Or maybe
I'm
it's like
sending it.
my
I'm sending it to your agent.
Yes, yeah. I mean, that's not really what I was on my vision board, but
Right.
heck, my entire career has not necessarily been on my vision board by most standards. But I am, so as I said, I swooped back into life and I've just
Yep.
been riding the roller coaster of it. And I do, as I mentioned, host NWSL, so women's soccer on the weekends on Ion TV, which has been
Yeah.
really great. It's been wonderful working for Ion and Scripps. I go to Atlanta and do it. And I work alongside former World Cup champion Jess McDonald and NWSL champion Darian Jenkins, and we get to do what we want. Like, we get to do a pre-half post-game show hosting it, and it's been great. And I feel like after doing the Olympics, where you know, there was no teleprompter, there's no one writing highlights for you, there's no some of these things in the States at networks I've worked at before that you just kind of come to expect to just be there, even though you can do this job without them. Doing the Olympics with CBC, I felt made me grow tenfold. A lot of the time was just because I was listening and waiting to see how Scott Russell was going to throw it to me, because I'm a big improv fan and I want to, yes and the moment. I'm not a thanks, go into my thing. I'm like, how's he? I say like this because I always felt like I was on a surfboard, like what's the wave going to be? And so that was always so fun, which I realized in my career. Like, I used to be so scared of those moments when I'd be on the sideline for a game and I'd just be like, don't mess up, don't mess up, don't mess up. Everyone in a bar can see you right now if you mess up. Like, I just and I'd memorize entirely my hits. Like, Alexi Lawless from Fox Sports, I remember he's like, you memorize every single word of those hits. He'd be like, tell me last week's. And I'd just be like, go into like Seattle Sounders head coach, blah, 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 all this stuff. And so he's like, good. I'm like, maybe I should have been like an actor or something. So I can commit things to memory, but I've had great producers, throughout the years that have, helped you kind of like not memorize it, but know your notes. But I do like to memorize sometimes like an intro or something where I know it's like, this is how we're going to start and it's going to be clean and we're going to finish like this. Maybe we'll add in a couple things here or there. But when I was doing it with CBC, sometimes it wouldn't be as clean, not clean, but like it wouldn't be as sort of like a template in a way. A lot of it was what you just mentioned, the word authentic. And that's part of the pillars of the whole broadcast was ACE, authentic, Canadian, entertaining. And so my boss for the Olympics, executive producer Shirley Nijak, he was incredible, really just telling me, be yourself, like go out there, be yourself, know the moments, understand, when things are like when to show kind of that personality and have some fun with it and when not to. And those were moments like I really am so grateful that I was given so much trust to be myself, and that I was like, I've worked at a lot of different networks and I have a lot of different letters on my resume, and they've all been different experiences. And I just remember Shirley telling me all of these different things make who you are and can help make us better too, because you've gotten to work at all these different places and like see how they've done stuff. How do they do this? What's the vibe like there? Like it's almost like I've gone backpacking around the world and I can come home and share all my stories of the different places I've been. And I've never had an executive approach my career like that, as if it had value, like as if all the pit stops along the way, of which can be viewed in so many different ways of, oh, you didn't have a 25-year career at ESPN like many sports center anchors. It's like, no, I didn't. It is a gig economy too. And there's also a pandemic we had as well, which kind of influenced a lot of different things with live sports. But you have all these different experiences, working with all these different people, and you've had to work with different people, different personalities, make things work. And that's one great part about improv is like, I always tell people, like, you have to find a commonality between you and a stranger to make something work. And I spoke at a conference at the NHL draft for Sports Management Worldwide, a company where I took a hockey scouting class with back in 2011 because I was really interested in it, just purely out of, I worked with the Bruins and I was just curious about scouting. And I was telling these kids who were asking me, like, what's the advice, you could give us about something in your career that's been unique? And, other than the mindset of like, you can't beat somebody who doesn't give up, which I've very much committed myself to, is the value of doing other things to like improv. I did stand-up comedy. I'm not funny, but I did it. And I learned how to think differently, write differently. And I think like the more that you can just diversify your different skills and the different ways that you think, and the confidence that you can have in chaos, because that is exactly what I felt the culmination of everything. And doing, the Olympics, there was a moment when I remember I couldn't remember who the USA was playing. And I'm live on TV across Canada. But having worked in so many different situations, working like this MMA show in that was like an American Idol MMA show for the PFL, something I had no idea how to do. Like being comfortable in the uncomfortable has been the biggest thing. And that's what improv taught. I said, go take an improv class, because it's like that's life, right? Nothing is, there's no sort of like nice little, oh, you get a job and it's going to be great and good like that. It's like, no, it's going to be, every day is going to be different, and you're also never guaranteed anything. So you have to be able to just like adapt and pick yourself up when you need to, and move on, and just, it's a great way to enjoy yourself and find different things. Anyways, I could just do my monologue on improv forever, but yeah, it helped me in that moment, like staying calm when I was thinking on my feet and being like, okay, old me who didn't have this much experience would be like a puddle and I'd just like fall over if I couldn't remember whoever USA was playing on TV. I just was like, you're gonna figure it out, you're gonna remember it. And I did, so it's and those moments are also relatable too, as one of my bosses told me. It's like, yeah, people forget stuff all the time, or it's almost like people want to kind of see the authenticity, the reality, the being relatable. I think that's how TV has changed a lot too. Nobody wants to see a robot read a teleprompter. I mean, some people do, but the new genre seems to not have that appetite.
No, and I think what's unique about your style is that your ability to lean into and connect your own personal experience with what the audience is seeing or seeing in real time. So I know you love playing and played hockey. So, if someone scores a wicked goal from a fantastic slap shot or a wrist shot, which I understand is your specialty,
Yes, yes,
like
yeah.
your ability to pull in from your own experience, while you didn't play professional hockey, but your ability to tie into your own experience and bring that into the broadcast has a certain connection with the audience, right? And it does cross the bridge. And I think that authenticity establishes a relationship that the audience appreciates.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, I haven't played professional hockey yet, is what I would correct you on. I don't think I'll be playing it anytime soon, but I appreciate you saying that. And I try not to make things about myself, but it is great to be able to understand some of the things that maybe players are going through, or even just their mindset, their mentality, kind of what it's like. You just kind of know what it's like. That's the thing that's different.
That's my point. That it's not about saying, "Oh, back when I played," or "back when I did this." It's not that, but you have because you've done certain things, you have an appreciation, and it's evident in the way in which you approach and ask questions. That's my point.
Thank you. Thank you.
And there's a
I
big difference
appreciate
to that.
that.
So interesting. You've done various things in various sports. You've taken classes. There was a brouhaha last year, if you will, with Charissa Thompson. Probably a moment she'd like to take back, but sometimes the truth hurts and comes out. She basically said that there are times where she has made things up as a sideline reporter to fill a hit when thrown to her. And a lot of people, especially female reporters with a lot of tenure, took a lot of issue with the comment, feeling that it set people back and the whole industry back eons. What was your whole take on that?
Well, I will say it would have made my life a lot easier if I'd made stuff up. Because I went to some pretty extensive lengths to get one word of a quote.
Right.
I actually just, I couldn't, I messaged a couple of my friends who were a bit vocal about it, who are pretty high up in reporting. And I actually just couldn't even imagine a world where that would have happened. It's like not even something that I thought could have possibly existed, that someone would do that. I mean, to my detriment, I would go above and beyond to try to get into broadcasts with getting unique information, such that like I was joking with a friend when that whole thing happened, like with the Women's World Cup. To get into the broadcast of a FIFA run event is very difficult, because everything's pretty much like you might do a post or a pregame hit, like an interview at halftime, maybe probably not, and then maybe you get the second mix zone thing depending on the country or whatever. But I was like, no, this is a challenge for me. I want to get into this broadcast, and I would find ways of, how do I get to this coach, like, that's going to be walking into the locker room and I'm over here. And I thought of it like always like a video game. I'd be like, okay, I need to intercept this coach, and I can kind of creep my way around, or I'd make friends with security guards. I remember in Winnipeg, I made friends with security guards. I was like, I used to live in Winnipeg, talking. Sylvia Nide from Germany, head coach, is just walking by, and I was like, okay, see you later. And I just started walking with her, and I was just like, what do you think about the first half? Changes, all this. And you had to be really creative to get into the broadcast. And I have since, whenever I've been able to work a broadcast, being sideline, I always imagine everything that a coach might have said to a whole broadcast group, that means we all know it. So that's not mine. Even if I ask a question in, like, say, the broadcast meetings, I always just imagine anyone can say this at any point. And the way the human brain works, if you've heard someone say it, even if they've said ahead of time, hey, that's mine, we all agree, I'm going to say that, no one else take it. I never, like, your brain can just might say it. And that's happened to me before. And I've learned that you've got to go out there and get something different. And like, even with TNT, NHL and TNT, when I was fortunate enough to work it in 2022, I wanted something that I knew no one else would have, which was, I was able to talk with Bruce Arians, who had won the Super Bowl in 2020, about John Cooper, who had won the Stanley Cup in 2020. And they were both obviously in Tampa, and they had spent time together, and being able to add to a broadcast with a Super Bowl winning head coach, and then kind of what he thinks about him, and then relating him to what NFL coach he thought he'd be like, which he did say Bill Belichick, which I found interesting, but they're very different in that regard. is something my teammates couldn't add because they didn't have that conversation. So I always came with like a list of almost like every possible player, and something of which, like, oh, I spoke with Ryan Getzlaff about Corey Perry. Oh, I spoke with Brian Burke about the Leafs mentality. Anything that I knew that Edzo and John Forsland and Keith Jones or Jen Botterill, whoever I'm working with, I know they can't have it. So when I heard what Carissa had said, I was like, damn, like I could have saved myself a whole lot of work if like that's what the standard operating procedure was. But like I never even thought that. I was disappointed, obviously, because yeah, it did then kind of give the trolls and the people that are like, oh, those women on the sidelines, like they take away from the game, they're stupid. It's like it gives those wackadoodles just more ammo to do that, and it's like, no, the people on the sideline work the hardest to be able to be a part of that game. And you hear 40 seconds of someone in an entire game. That probably took them like 40 hours to get all that in there. And that's respect that I still believe exists. And I think that the entire broadcasting world and outside of it understands that's what's going on, that this comment was just someone's personal experience.
If you could wave your magic wand, so to speak, and cover either one sport or one event, what would it be?
Well, I would wave my magic wand and cover hockey. If it's not being like the Mike Tirico of the Olympics, if it's not being Mike Tirico, it would be. It was kind of funny. I'm like, yes, I would like to be Mike Tirico. He has the best job in the world, in my opinion, but he doesn't cover hockey. I would like to host hockey. I want to be a part of hockey. I love hockey. I'm obsessed with hockey. I play it. When I came to the States, I remember I had a former boss telling me, like, stop liking that hockey thing because it's not big down here. And I was like, but I can't not like it. It's just part of like my DNA. I'm obsessed with it. And I did do what they wanted me to do because that's where I worked and everything like that. I still was able to have a hand in regional hockey on the side doing LA Kings and the Anaheim Ducks, which was fantastic. But there's just something about when something speaks to you. And I think like the whole world really, when we're becoming more mindful about like what makes us happy, once you just like kind of tap into that consciousness of like, end of the day, strip it all away. What is it that you really want to do and you like, regardless of where you are, how much money it makes, whatever it is. Like, I just want to cover hockey. And I know these players, having covered them since they were literal children, makes me feel old. Like I always tell, like I was at Braden Point's first skate in Moose Jaw when he wasn't even supposed to be skating that day. He was 15 years old. I was there covering Morgan Riley, who was coming back for an injury. And then seeing this guy winning multiple Stanley Cups and kind of having the connection with these people over all these years, and even having NHL coaches text me during the summer being like, hey, I'm watching you doing the Olympics in Canada. These are relationships that have been forged for years, and it's not something you can just sort of turn off or throw away. It's like really deep seated in who you are, in your identity. And that is what my manifestation chart I have is directed toward working back in hockey again. And I actually did last year with SNY. I just said, so that's the Mets network in New York. And they have like a sports show at night. And I just said, hey, do you guys think you could get me a credential for the games, and I'll give you whatever content you want? Like I'm a freelancer there, so I would work on a per contract type basis, but I don't even care about that. I just want to be able to go continue creating the relationships, be at the rink, be around it, all this kind of stuff. And they said, how about you go and we'll pay you to do stuff? Like, because I didn't expect them to do that. And so
Mhm.
last year I just carved out my own role. And that's another thing I've kind of learned, rather than trying to compete with someone else for like one role. It's like, how do you create the job you want? And how do you like also work with people that are your competition, quote unquote, to create something even better? Especially with women. It's like, how can I work with other women to create something that we don't already see or have and that can make the sport better? And so when a lot of people ask me, how did you get this job with SNY? I was like, I made it. I just did it. And so it gave me such fulfillment being able to go to the rink, doing the reports, talking about it on TV. And then they would bring me in, and they allowed me and they trusted me to give my analysis on hockey. Like, I broke down plays, and I was able to be actually like an analyst as well as a reporter. But it was the trust and the support from them that was wonderful. And I can't even tell you like if I even ever got paid. I know I did, like, because they're a great company. But I just was like, it was beyond, I don't care about the money. I just want to do this thing. And I think that's like, at the end of the day, when you know that that's the thing, it's really it's great to know it, because knowing is the hardest part of what you want to do. So it's that, Olympics. I love covering soccer as well, but hockey's number one.
So as the calendar flips from August to September, the boys or men will be heading back to training camp. Hockey season is almost upon us. Crazy end to the season last year. Interesting off season thus far. What's got the juices flowing for the upcoming NHL season? What are you most excited about?
I mean, it feels like it just ended. Like,
I know.
I was just doing game 7 the other day, right before the Olympics.
I
It's
know.
like game 7 went into like literally the Olympics. I mean, there's so many big names and changed teams. I think that's like, eh, there's been a lot of musical chairs shape shifting all over the place, and I think that's what's really interesting, is that, as well as, there's various different ways of, anytime, especially in the States, like last year, ESPN had the Stanley Cup. This year, TNT has it. We know that in Canada, Hockey Night in Canada, and then Amazon is coming up too with it. I'm excited to see how that will look as well. And kind of just seeing how the sport evolves when we've seen so many things over the summer with other sports, and how their footprint and their presence has I don't know, captured different audiences. And whether you talk, everyone references, for good reason, like the Manning cast, to like Pat McAfee, to the personalities on TNT, to even the evolution of PK Subban and Mark Messier and Steve Levy on their broadcast, the infusion of personality in the sport, and seeing the guys become more open with doing that. We, for so long, and there are some teams that are like, no, we're not, no personality, no facial hair, that kind of thing. But there are others that realize how beneficial it is for like everyone involved. And I think it like beneficial, not even just like from a financial standpoint, but just from like, not everyone that watches hockey is the same. And people like to see, like, I want to know if someone uh, is obsessed with, I don't know what, Tamagotchis. Like, that's my bad improv brain. Like, I don't know, they love books on this subject, or like things that show us more about them than just on the ice, because that's what can connect with a lot of people that might not necessarily be the diehards too, right? Or if someone thinks, just, I love it when I hear, oh, this guy grew up and he wanted to, all he wants to do is still be like win a Masters, like be a golfer, like that's his dream. It's like, oh, that's odd. He's a professional hockey player, but like wants to do this. And I was just thinking with like Victor Hovland and Casper,
Mhm.
that was a really different thing. But yeah, I think there's such an untapped potential into personality, content, storytelling within hockey. And it's slowly but surely, like networks and people and teams are realizing okay, like we've dipped our toe out there and it's not that scary. It's actually like it's good. So I'm excited about that.
I think it is the one element that is most missed is that the one nice thing about hockey is the personalities. And I think it's the one thing that audiences are craving are the stories. And I think the networks and the outlets that shine the light on the personalities are the ones that are going to win in the modern era. And I think that the panels talking incessantly about yesterday's news are so old and beaten and tired. And what we want to hear are those stories. We want to see the guy who grew up, on a farm in Saskatchewan and what that was like and trudging through and what his life is like now and what his sister was doing. And like, those are the stories we do actually like to hear. And what's his daily routine like and how did he train and what's his like that human interest story is missing. And
Yeah.
I think that the more hockey does to connect the athlete to the audience, the bigger gain they're going to make. I think that is 100% true. And I think that part of the reasons for TNT's success is they do a lot more human element than the other broadcasts tend to do. I happen to agree with you.
Right. And I think like on the heels of the Olympics, which is obviously an event where we don't know all these people and these countries and these athletes, and we're drawn to it because of their stories. And those are the things that we tell our family and friends about afterward, like, hey, did you hear about this? Did you see this? And it's because of the story that goes along with, of course, what happens like on the field or in whatever competition to play. But it's it's that and it's TNT takes risks, which I really like. Some of the swings miss, but some of them are absolute home runs, and
Right.
that is the only way that you can really be successful is if you try. And I think for so long coverage has been scared to try because they've been scared to fail because there's been an audience that has been like, this is what our audience is and we're going to serve this audience. But it's like, you can serve this audience and you know their identity, so you can speak to that identity while also informing and probably informing them as well, but informing an entirely different audience, and not being afraid to poke fun at yourself while you're doing it. And that's the relatability. Like, we're not all experts. We don't know every single play that's going on, even the guys that are on TNT. Even when Wayne Gretzky kicks it to Paul Bissonnette to be able to break down a play, like the great one is kicking it to a fourth line goon, like, because he also trusts him with it. And I think and he can maybe he brings it to life in a different way or shows a different way to see it than maybe Gretzky could ever do. And I just love the change in sort of that, and it's and people kind of jumping on board with it. And so we'll see how the evolution of that goes. I'm excited, and of course the guys on, and then it's their social media presence, because that's how we get to really see them, right? Is like in their off time, and what photos are they liking? Oh, they're really into this, they're into that, they love this movie, they're friends with this actor, like just a bit more depth about them. And that's what we see in other sports: basketball, football, baseball, F1, anything like that also has another layer to it. So there's just so much potential for growth. I think it's just about doing it.
She is Julie Stewart-Binks, from the early days of Havergal College to Queen's University in Kingston to all over the sports broadcast world. I am sure we will see her on soccer fields, hockey rinks, and maybe even lacrosse arenas too. Who knows?
Probably. Of all the three, I'll probably be in the lacrosse arena.
Julie, it's awesome to see you live and in person and not just on TikTok and other social media channels. Hopefully we will get you back once the season gets rocking and rolling. We can talk about some of the things that are actually happening, some of the stories as they unfold. Thank you so much for doing this, and we will see you next time in the press row.
No, thank you so much for having me. And I apologize for my monologuing, but I feel very passionate about a lot of these different things. So yeah, I appreciate you giving me a platform to talk about it. So It's
No
always great to
monologuing. We only
catch
want
up.
people we love hearing people with passion. That's why we do this. Hope you enjoyed today's episode of In the Press Row with Julie. Thought she did a fantastic job. Can't wait to see where she ends up this season. I'm sure she's going to be on a hockey broadcast somewhere. I certainly hope she does. As always, if you would like to appear in the press row or you want to reach me, you can do it on all the various social media channels. My DMs, as they say, are open. You can find me using at YYZ Sports Media at Twitter, Instagram, and on TikTok. Please subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And as always, have an awesome day. And we will see you next time in the press row. Thank you.